Hi Krista, thanks so much for sitting down with me today. I'm super excited to talk about the O in our people framework, which is onboarding, which is something I'm pretty involved with for our clients.
Quite involved. You got right into it when you started.
Even though I'm 4 months into my time here at Building People, it's something I've really learned a lot about from you, and I'm super excited to keep chatting about it right now.
Cool. Let's ask away.
Yeah, so my first question is, what is the most common onboarding mistake that you see with our clients or companies in general?
Not having it exist at all, or assuming that onboarding is meeting with HR to do the paperwork and then going out to the job site. I think we're missing a huge opportunity to be really intentional when somebody starts, to get them, one of the most common phrases or sayings in construction is that like project managers and supers are siloed, that the project teams are really siloed. And so if you can be super intentional at the beginning to say, yes, we wanted them on site yesterday, but what is it really going to change to have somebody that's brand new that doesn't know anything go on site? It could actually be worse off than putting someone on site with 5 minutes than putting someone on site with a day of experience. So acknowledging how can we get them to meet with people that they might need to interact with, reach out to, call, text, email that they don't know. Now they've had a chance at least to get one-on-one interaction. And then two, are there some like specific processes that like you all do really specifically that you'd want to kind of at least get like an introductory level done in those first few days? So that would be the mistakes are that they don't do them at all, or that they acknowledge it's just like a 1 or 2 hour HR piece. And I think there's so much more to it.
Yeah. Some onboarding is better than no onboarding, right?
For sure.
So keeping that in mind, what should intentional onboarding feel like for a new employee?
I like that question. When I think about onboarding, I think most companies think that they're going to start out super excited. Like, this is the best day ever. I'm so happy that I'm so happy I'm not with the past organization, or that I've graduated and I've got my first job, and like there's this level of excitement. And on a scale of 1 to 10, I think most companies assume people are going to be at like that 8 to 10 mark of excitement to start at that organization. If you talk to most employees that are joining that organization, they're probably between a 4 and a 6. They're somewhere in the middle, that there's like trepidation, there's excitement, there's anxiety, nerves, all these different pieces. And as an organization, you have the opportunity to sway it one way or another and make that first day epic or make it so-so, right? Like some people are going to come from larger organizations and go to smaller ones and be like, what the heck did I get myself into? And question their decision. Whereas others, even if they're going from a large organization to a small organization, they may be like, wow, the amount of care, the fact that they knew I was coming, all of this detail that they put into place, that's impressive. We would do it for a customer. We oftentimes spend a lot of money hiring these folks, right? If we're using a staffing agency or a recruiting agency, and then to not put in a little bit of effort to make that first day or even first week really, really impactful is such a waste of an easy opportunity. So I say that around the like scale of 1 to 10, I think they come in kind of in that middle part and we have the opportunity. The other thing I'll say that is somewhat negative is that I often say like your first day has the potential to be like the best day, and then it might go downhill from there, and I'd rather it go downhill as a cross-country ski, not really feeling like it's going downhill, rather than a roller coaster of like, oh, I would also hate for folks to be like, I'm gonna give them the best onboarding experience, but then after that, like shit hits the fan and like everything sucks, right? Like I don't want that either. And so when you just said some onboarding is better than none, if you can't give them the golden experience, can you give them the bronze experience? Can you give them a little bit for this? If you've decided, okay, we've got to move forward with onboarding, I'm going to give them something small because this is all we can manage, great. Add to it and update it maybe each time to add one more piece to the next new hire's plan so that it's manageable for your team and your company, and also doesn't make them feel like they're a king or queen and then the jester at the town fair.
Totally. Kind of leading off of that, when our client has an onboarding plan in place already and we're just signing on with them, for example, but it's not really working for them, they're not really retaining their employees or they're not getting great feedback about it, how do you know, or how do we determine if that's a hiring issue or an onboarding issue?
I love that question. Right. And I have a feeling you might be asking it because we've experienced this at Building People.
Yeah.
So usually folks say that they do a good job of onboarding. Usually our clients, when we first start, I would say 50% say we don't have an onboarding plan, or 50% would be like, ours is pretty good. And if we can, if we are now their outsourced learning and development partner, we will go and sit in on their onboarding to truly experience it firsthand. And then we have a much better understanding of like, we've seen what kind of good and great can be, and so we can understand where they truly are on that scale versus them assuming it based off of their own experience. So that would be the first thing that I try and do. The other piece is kind of speaking with some of their employees to hear it from their perspective, like the ones that have most recently been hired, to say, hey, how was the onboarding experience? What did you love? What might you do differently? Similarly though, like onboarding is one of those things that a lot of companies just pass by. And so a lot of folks are like, oh, it was fine. Like I got to meet some folks that did the HR paperwork and then I got started. Or some people will even say, great, I didn't have to spend that much time in the office. I got to go to the job site right away. Great, but how, like, were they intentional in giving you and having you shadow another superintendent for the day to understand how things were done? So that is kind of one piece. I think the other piece that you're getting at is like, think about onboarding as more of a 30, 60, 90 day plan. And okay, do we have some sort of goals in place for these folks to kind of meet? Is there any sort of intentional plan around the next 30, 60, 90 days of what they are, maybe outcomes that you want them to create? Maybe there's like certain skills that you want to confirm that they're taking ownership of, or tasks that they're taking ownership of at a certain time frame. And so again, this can be done at the like role level. If you're hiring a lot of project managers or superintendents, you can build it out to say, okay, here's kind of where I want folks to be. We have those qualification cards that for like pipe layers even of, okay, here's where we want them, what skills we want them to have at 30 days, 60, 90 days. You can do the same thing for project managers to understand kind of where you want them to be. And then if they're not at that place at 30, 60, or 90 days, you have a document, a very crystal clear document to share with them as to like, hey, we were really hoping that you would be here by now, you're not. Have we not given you the opportunity to even experience this? If like you're saying, oh, I want you to be an expert at closeout in the first 30 days, but you're on a new project that is just pouring concrete, like that's not possible. And so do you need to go to shadow a job site with another super to experience a couple of days or one day for that? Or can you acknowledge that's like not applicable at this time? And then also saying, hey, you're like, these are the areas that you're doing really, really well. We don't always have to just focus on the negatives. And so I think if you do that a few times, you start to see that maybe the folks that you were like, would have questioned before as being the right hire, maybe were the right hire because now they have an accountability roadmap, so to speak, to kind of to get to. You're able to have conversations when they're not there and be really intentional versus just being like, you're not making, like, I don't think this is a good fit. Like, you're not going to last with us. That's not helpful information. So though, and I guess the last thing I would say around that from a hiring perspective is if you're finding over and over and over again that folks aren't hitting that mark, there's two potential reasons, right? There's the potential reason that you've been hiring the wrong folks, and so what are you missing out on? What questions are you missing in the interview process? Or are your expectations too high? If no one's hitting them, is that then an impossible piece either one of those could be true, and there's a bit of an inward look as to kind of what that one looks like to think about for the future.
Totally.
Yeah.
Talking about these different types of onboarding frameworks and check-ins and qualification cards, that kind of lands on the managers to enforce. How do we know and how do we ensure managers are ready to onboard well? Not just their HR person or group or us enforcing it. How do we nail it down into the managers?
Yeah. I think giving them, I think that's a really great question. And for managers have such a hard job in the sense that like you're not going to constantly be managing the same type of people. And so every new person that you're bringing in is going to be different. I think a lot of managers have acknowledged that their organization doesn't give them a whole lot of checklists, processes, steps for managing people. And so if we were to say, hey, here's a template for this onboarding for a new project manager, then the manager has something to work off of. They might change it. I would say don't just scrap everything, because there is a level of consistency that if you only hire a new estimator every 6 to 12 months, you're not going to remember all the pieces. And so maybe you don't need it specific to okay, this is from 8 to 9 and this is from 9 to 11, but you could have a checklist to ensure that you're covering all those pieces with someone with a role that you don't hire as often. The qualification cards, building that out, there are pieces that if the organization can build out these frameworks, then the manager has something to kind of go off of versus just winging it. Maybe they know what they're like, I know I don't want to be this type of manager because I had that and that's not what I want. Or I know I want to do this thing because my last manager did that, or that worked the last time that I hired this person, but it might not work with this new person. So again, I'm just a big believer of I think managers have a lot on their plate. They have a lot of pressure to make that new employee successful. And if they are new or if they're experienced, giving them some framework, some documents that they can use as a starting off point or a jumping off point, and to provide consistency as an organization. That I would hate for one manager who's phenomenal and done it for 30 years to have a great onboarding process with their employees, but a new manager who has done it for 3 minutes, 30 minutes, to not have any of those tools and feel like they're failing for the first time. So again, I'm just a big believer in how can we set up your people operations so that you have some documents, some frameworks to use to help your managers be successful in managing them and then checking in.
Yeah. If you're a small company or small team, how can you still be successful in onboarding, even if you don't think you have the resources to do it well?
You're just nailing these questions. Love them. I would say that regularly the smaller organizations are oh, we don't need that. They're going to meet everyone on their first day. And then someone's on vacation and or someone's not at the office, and so they don't get a chance to meet them. So I think there's always a chance for smaller companies. It's probably easier. You can almost ensure this new employee meets everybody in the company and understands the different roles that they play. Whereas in a larger organization, if you're a 250 person company, in the first week you might have them meet 20 people max, which is probably even high.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're a small company, you could have them meet 20 people and that's the size of the company, and they could meet them in the first week or two, and now they know everyone and feel like they've been with the company for longer than 4 months because you got to meet everybody. I think of your onboarding experience in particular, you got to meet everyone, and we're a 7-person company, so obviously much smaller, but in the first few days, and have plenty of interactions to kind of build that connection and camaraderie. And with smaller organizations, that's what they pride themselves on usually. And so walking the talk, so to speak, of onboarding is these smaller organizations making sure that they are walking that talk and providing that great experience from the beginning.
Love it.
And again, if you have those frameworks, it's not that difficult because you're not having
Yeah.
to recreate the wheel every time.
Mhm.
Just create it once and then tweak it as you go along.
Yeah. Going off of that, how do you find that balance between consistency and personalization in an onboarding plan?
Yeah. Big believer in checklists. I love a good checklist. But then thinking about, okay, and now that we have this estimating or PM onboarding plan, what trainings are coming up in the next 2 weeks that we might need to change? What meetings might be happening? Like, is there an owner meeting that this person should shadow or be a part of? Is there a big like milestone happening on a project that they should go and see because it'll be a cool experience? So acknowledging that once a date has been set, what changes might need to be made. And then also thinking about if you have a solid interview process and hiring process, what were some of the kind of like key notes that this person brought up as they were getting hired? Were they, like why were they leaving this other organization? What are their kind of like future goals as in the company? There's probably a lot of different pieces that you can kind of like think through in terms of their hiring, and how could you kind of add to that or make something specific to say, oh, this person left because their manager never paid any attention to them. They never met, they had been there for 5 years and they had never had a single review. Okay, now as a manager, as someone who's like hiring them, maybe there is an acknowledgement that they want a little bit more of that attention. And so what level of follow-up or check-in can I provide them with? Can I add that? Whereas maybe someone else, I've never heard this, but we'll just go along with the example, is like, my manager checked in with me all the time and I hated it. Or like, I felt like I was micromanaged. If there was this feeling of micromanagement, is there at some point in the onboarding process a conversation between the manager and the employee to say, hey, I know that when we hired you, one of the pieces that you said was that you constantly felt micromanaged. How are we currently doing as an organization? Are you feeling that way currently? And what can I do for you as your manager to make you successful and ensure that that doesn't become the norm, right? And like, so using that information from the hiring process, you have the opportunity to like customize it and make sure that you are trying to help create the space or the excitement that they had when you hired them to keep them long term.
Yeah, kind of meeting them where they're at.
Yeah, and like actually listening and doing something about it. I think we like use those interviewing notes to hire, but then we just like throw them out of our mind, and probably if they were like handwritten, literally in the trash, and we forget to use them during the actual working, like once we've hired them and bringing them on. I think we're missing a little bit of a chance to take advantage of that.
What metrics or signals tell us that an onboarding plan is actually working?
Yes. Again, if you can, having some sort of qualification card in place as to like, okay, this is the role. Maybe it's if you have to from the beginning, like here's the job description. And often I think of like the 90-day mark, that like 3-month mark is like, okay, how are they currently doing in these different areas that are on their job description? Have they been able to see all of the different aspects, or have they struggled that we've had to keep them like super like niche because like we need them to focus on one area? You could kind of do a red, yellow, green of going through the job description and just saying like doing great are kind of like where they should be for 90 days. A little bit behind would be the yellow, and then like haven't even experienced it or not doing well would be the red, and kind of being able to give yourself a quick evaluation that way. The other piece, I'm trying to think of some of the other things that we've done so the qualification cards are always easy, and then you can use that as an evaluation. Job descriptions could be another opportunity. Another one would be after like the first week or two, saying, after 2 weeks of here are the goals that we have for you for the first 90 days, and then checking in to see how we're doing against those goals and kind of where things are going. What I'll speak to is that, and I think we've talked about the like 6 levels of delegation. Have we talked about 6 levels? Okay. Is that a lot of folks, so the 6 levels of delegation, level 1 is do as I say. Level 2 is like, look into this for me, give me some research. Level 3 is like research, decide, and then check with me. Or research, like give me your opinion, and then I'll decide. Give me your options, and then I'll decide. Level 4 is the like, look into this, make a decision, and check with me. Level 5 is like decide, but within these limits.
Yep.
And level 6 is take care of it for me. We'll put a little like link in the video to an image of that. But most often people hire someone and they're like, all right, do exactly as I say. They have them at this level 1 delegation. That person does well for the first week or 2, and then they're like, great, now just take care of it for me. And they quickly transition them to a level 6. And as you've heard from some of our clients, then they don't do well.
Yeah.
And that the manager is like, oh, this person sucks, they're dead to me. Like, truly have heard folks say like, oh, we need to hire another person, this person's not gonna kick it. And I'm like, you're missing out on this opportunity to grow the individual by slowly giving them the tasks, slowly having to give up some of your control, and building trust along the line. And it doesn't have to take months and months and months, but there should be a process to getting that folks to be successful. And maybe your goal from an evaluation perspective is for folks to get to a level 3 or 4, but never a level 6. I think there are plenty of responsibilities and roles that don't ever have to get to a level 6, but could be like well received as a level 3 or level 4 and take a lot of time off that manager's plate. And so that could be another one of like, okay, here are the 5 main goals 5 main tasks we want you to have some ownership of. That ownership might be level 4 of like research, decide, and then check with me. That when you check with me, I feel pretty good about the responses that you're gonna give. Versus every time that you've made a decision in the last 3 months, you've made the wrong one. I've gone with a different approach. So your decision making, I'm struggling with. You're not making the right decisions. That's a different conversation. But it's still an important one. And I think would show, okay, from an evaluation perspective, this person is struggling. And are they the right fit? Were they the wrong fit to begin with? Or can we help them in acknowledging like, why are you making these decisions? Maybe at a past organization, that was the direction that they regularly wanted people to go. Long-winded answer. Sorry, and thank you for asking the question.
No, it's amazing how granular you can get with all of this and not just say, all right, we gave you the week of onboarding, now sink or swim and let's see how you do. It's really an ongoing process.
100%, yeah.
Do you want to kind of just speak a little bit to why you chose onboarding for the O in our people framework rather than any other elements of L&D?
Yeah, I'm trying, like, it's a great question. From the larger organization that I worked for in construction, they had a really great onboarding. When I left construction and went to TripAdvisor, they had a great onboarding, and their CEO met like once a month with every new employee. So it was global, and so there had to be an essence of like, oh, we're gonna meet all in one room and then virtual, and he gave you 2 hours, which as a company of like 3,500, 2 hours once a month was pretty impressive. And so when I kind of came back to the construction industry and wanted to kind of build out or enhance the onboarding process there, I think it was with that in the back of my mind that was important. I think the other piece again is that like, as much as we as an employers are like, we want them to get started right away, employees want to feel like they can be successful right away. And if we don't give them the tools to be successful, it's frustrating on the employer's part and it's frustrating on the employee's part. And so there was this, it's just in some ways, a lot of folks in construction will say like, oh, that's common sense about like construction related things. And I think about onboarding as like that's common sense, which, nothing probably is common sense in the grand scheme of things. is an important part of like how can we ingratiate and effectively and efficiently get someone up to speed quickly so that they can be successful from a business perspective as a business owner, but also so that they can feel successful and empowered to do their job like more autonomously without needing to be micromanaged. So I think of it, there was that one was easy in the O perspective with the P's and the E's and there was like too many of the same letter. That was where it was more difficult, but the O was an easy one for me as like onboarding is important, super intentional, and can get folks up and running quickly.
Love it. Okay. All right. Awesome. So what I'm hearing is that onboarding is better. Some onboarding is better than none. It's a mutual relationship. Your employee wants to be successful and the employer.
And onboarding like shows them that you want them to be successful and you want the organization to be successful. It kind of provides that opportunity to see that. Yeah,
definitely. And it really is possible to measure how successful an onboarding plan is. Between 30-day, 60-day, 90-day checkpoints, you can clearly lay out goals, checklists, and see how well the process is going. And you don't have to just guess.
And it doesn't have to be like a ton of legwork. We can make it more, more specific, and there can be more strategies, I should say, or like frameworks around it. But you could do it as simple as a job description and 3 different colored markers. Yes, I think those are 3 good ones.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Krista.
This was fun.
It was.